It was exactly 11:15 a.m. Pacific Time, inside the ultra-exclusive private wealth management suites of a Beverly Hills financial institution. A routine transfer was initiated by the business managers of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The amount in question was a staggering 7 figures. The ultimate purpose was liquidating a massive portion of a generational trust fund to quietly finance a sprawling new real estate acquisition. But when the senior wealth manager hit the execute button, the banking system did not just decline the transaction. The manager physically stepped back from the monitor in sheer shock as the entire terminal locked down. A digital perimeter had been breached, an automatic override flashing across the screen with a brutal, glaring red legal code that no American banker had ever seen in their lifetime. Code 7, Sovereign Injunction. Over $40 million vanished into an impenetrable legal escrow in the blink of an eye. If you want to know the absolute truth that palace insiders are terrified to speak about, and how the king legally trapped this inheritance, you need to impress that like button and subscribe to this channel right now. Because we are breaking open the sealed documents the mainstream media won't touch. The Sussex public relations camp is desperately working behind the scenes to spin this catastrophic financial freezing as a routine banking error or a mere clerical delay. Do not be fooled for a single second. There was no error. This was a targeted, precision strike orchestrated from the very apex of the British monarchy. A financial kill switch activated from across the Atlantic, specifically designed to cut off the oxygen to a Hollywood empire built on grievances. To truly comprehend the unprecedented magnitude of this financial lockdown, we have to rewind the clock exactly 72 hours and cross the ocean to a dreary, overcast London. Deep within the subterranean archives of Coutts and Company, the exclusive private bankers who have guarded the fortunes of the British royal family for over 3 centuries, a fuse was quietly lit. The conflict playing out in these shadowed vaults is as ancient as the monarchy itself. It is the archetypal clash of the prodigal son demanding his unearned inheritance, violently colliding against the absolute, unyielding authority of the patriarch, whose sole duty is to protect the family treasury from being pillaged. For years, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex operated under a specific, unshakable delusion. They believed that because a substantial portion of their trust was inextricably tied to the late Princess Diana's original estate, they possessed absolute, untouchable sovereignty over the capital. They believed they were completely immune to the crown's reach. And this is precisely where the grand, emotional manipulation has always come into play. For years, the carefully constructed narrative broadcast to the global public has been that Prince Harry was simply surviving on the remnants of what his beloved mother left him. It was the ultimate, impenetrable PR shield. After all, how could the palace ever dare to touch Diana's money without immediately casting themselves as the ultimate, heartless villains in the eyes of the world? The Sussexes banked their entire financial future on this emotional blackmail, operating with the reckless abandon of billionaires while possessing a fraction of the actual liquidity required to sustain their Montecito lifestyle. But what the Sussexes did not know, what no one outside of the innermost sanctum of the monarchy knew until a specialized team of forensic accountants broke the royal seal merely 3 days ago, was that the late Queen Elizabeth II possessed a foresight that bordered on the prophetic. She had anticipated this exact, devastating scenario in the twilight of her reign. Deep within the heavily guarded Coutts vault, Crown lawyers uncovered what is now being breathlessly whispered about in the hushed corridors of Westminster as the red leather dossier. This was not a standard financial ledger, nor was it a simple accounting of royal assets. It was a secret, ironclad addendum to the royal financial trusts, personally signed by Queen Elizabeth in the final, agonizing months of her life, and immediately, seamlessly transferred to King Charles upon his accession to the throne. We had a top-tier fiduciary trust attorney meticulously analyze the leaked contents of this explosive dossier, and the sheer, brutal brilliance of the legal architecture is staggering to behold. The late Queen, acting on the advice of the most ruthless constitutional lawyers in Britain, utilised a highly obscure, virtually forgotten piece of 19th century British law known as the 1842 Duchy Fiduciary Act. Within the arcane parameters of this act, she embedded a devastating, generation-skipping transfer mechanism. But she armed it with a fatal catch: an irrevocable sovereign proxy. To translate that dense, aristocratic jargon into plain, terrifying English for the Sussexes, it means that while the money may have originally flowed from Diana's estate, it was historically, legally, commingled with crown assets during the years she was married to the future king. Therefore, by the divine right and legal precedent of the sovereign, the reigning monarch retains absolute, unquestionable veto power over any lump sum withdrawal that exceeds £1 million. But the masterstroke of the red leather dossier is the activation clause. This veto power is instantly triggered if said withdrawal is deemed, in the sole and absolute discretion of the monarch, to be detrimental to the dignity, security, or financial stability of the crown. By attempting to quietly withdraw tens of millions of dollars in a single, massive wire transfer to fund a private Hollywood empire that actively, aggressively monetizes its endless attacks on the British monarchy, the Sussexes unwittingly stepped right onto the exact legal tripwire Queen Elizabeth had meticulously set for them from beyond the grave. This wasn't merely a defensive measure. It was a constitutional bear trap. The wealth managers in Beverly Hills had assumed this was a standard trust dispersal, treating the royal fortune as if it were a tech billionaire's checking account. They failed to understand that royal wealth is not merely currency. It is an instrument of statecraft, bound by centuries of blood, duty, and archaic laws that do not bow to American banking regulations. The moment the Beverly Hills terminal pinged the master servers in London, the automated systems at Coutts recognized the catastrophic breach of the 1842 parameters. It bypassed the human tellers, bypassed the regional managers, and sent a direct, encrypted alert to the keeper of the privy purse. The trap snapped shut before the Sussexes' legal team even knew they were in danger. They had pushed their luck one too many times, draining the royal patience until there was nothing left but the cold, hard steel of the sovereign's ultimate authority. The moment the Beverly Hills transaction was brutally rejected by the international banking servers, sheer, unadulterated panic erupted behind the guarded gates of Montecito. Phones began ringing wildly across multiple time zones. The carefully constructed facade of effortless Hollywood royalty instantly shattered, replaced by the frantic, scrambling desperation of a corporate entity suddenly realized its main artery had just been severed. Within 2 agonizing hours of the initial declined wire transfer, an emergency, high-security, heavily encrypted teleconference was initiated across the Atlantic. This was not a polite inquiry. It was a desperate scramble for survival. The contrast between the two factions staring at each other across the digital divide was nothing short of cinematic. On one side of the screen, bathed in the glaring artificial sunlight of a sleek, glass-walled California boardroom, sat the Sussexes' aggressive American litigation team. These were the apex predators of Los Angeles entertainment law, men and women accustomed to bullying studios, intimidating publishers, and screaming their way to massive settlements. They came into this meeting expecting to steamroll what they assumed was a sluggish, outdated British bureaucracy. On the other side of the screen, sitting in the gloomy, ancient, mahogany-panelled sanctum of a London legal office with rain lashing against the leaded windows, sat the keeper of the privy purse alongside 3 of the Crown's most ruthless, seasoned barristers. They were stone-faced, utterly motionless, projecting an aura of cold, calculating, centuries-old institutional power. According to a paralyzing leak from a terrified paralegal tasked with logging the minutes of this highly classified meeting, the American lawyers immediately went on the offensive, coming into the call screaming. They didn't ask for clarification. They demanded immediate compliance. They threatened massive, scorched earth lawsuits. They threatened to go directly to the American press within the hour and claimed that the King of England was maliciously stealing from a dead woman's legacy to punish his own son. They attempted to weaponize Princess Diana's memory right there in the boardroom, wielding it like a blunt instrument against the stoic men in London. But the British barristers did not flinch. They did not interrupt. They simply let the Americans scream themselves, hoarse, their silence acting as an impenetrable fortress against the hysterical barrage of Californian litigation tactics. When the frantic threats finally subsided into a tense, suffocating silence, the lead Crown barrister didn't even bother to raise his voice. He did not match their anger. Instead, with agonizing slowness, he lifted a heavily redacted, digitally scanned copy of the red leather dossier to the camera lens. The aristocratic disdain in his voice was palpable, dripping through the speakers like ice water. He looked directly at the screaming American litigator and stated, with absolute, crushing finality, that his clients did not own this capital. They never did. He explained, with the terrifying precision of a legal executioner, that the Duke and Duchess were mere beneficiaries of a highly discretionary trust. A trust that was now, legally, indefinitely, and irreversibly under sovereign lockdown. The paralegal noted that the reaction on the American side was catastrophic. The arrogance evaporated, replaced by a horrifying dawn of realization. The audio picked up the violent, echoing crack of a heavy leather folder being furiously slammed against a glass conference table off-camera. The lead Sussex lawyer, his composure completely shattered, leaned aggressively into the camera lens. His bloodshot veins were visibly pulsing at his temples, his knuckles turning a stark, sickly white as he gripped his expensive pen like a weapon. He barked into the microphone, his voice cracking with rage, calling the maneuver an act of financial hostage-taking. He accused the Crown of operating an illegal cartel, of violating international banking mandates, of engaging in an act of profound economic warfare against a defenseless family. The British barrister simply smiled. It was a cold, thin, lifeless smile that conveyed absolute, terrifying dominance. He leaned slightly forward, staring down the lens of the camera, and delivered the final, devastating blow. "No, sir," he whispered, his voice cutting through the transatlantic static with lethal clarity. "This is the law. The King sends his regards." And with a single, definitive keystroke, the palace abruptly terminated the call, plunging the Montecito boardroom into a deafening, horrifying silence. The American lawyers were left staring at a black screen, completely powerless, outmaneuvered, and utterly defeated by an institution that had been crushing rebellion since the Middle Ages. But the punishment did not end with that terminated call. There were no further warnings, no grace periods, no opportunities for negotiation, mediation, or appeal. The legal finality was executed with the staggering ruthlessness and precision of a military black ops mission. Exactly at 5 o'clock in the evening, London time, as the heavy wooden doors of the royal offices were being locked for the night, King Charles officially pressed his royal seal to the sovereign injunction in a silent room in Buckingham Palace. In that singular, historic moment, the names Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were administratively and permanently struck from the active dispersal ledger of the Coutts Master Trust. This wasn't a temporary freeze. This was a complete, structural financial decapitation designed to cripple their operating capacity entirely. Deep within the encrypted servers of the global banking network, a live ledger update was forcefully pushed through the system. The progress bar completed its digital journey in milliseconds, and the staggering balance of $40,250,000 instantly, brutally dropped to 0.00. Across the screen, stamped in unforgiving, bold, capital letters, flashed the final, inescapable verdict. Escrow, Crown Authority. The $40 million had not simply been frozen, it had been legally walled off, completely isolated and inaccessible, sent directly into a financial purgatory that only the reigning king holds the solitary key to unlock. It was the ultimate checkmate. The Sussexes had tried to play a dangerous game of high-stakes financial chicken with a 1,000-year-old monarchy, and they had just been totally and completely annihilated. The Sussexes have been effectively and utterly financially decapitated. The crushing reality of their new existence is currently echoing through the cavernous, empty halls of their Montecito estate. Without access to that $40 million trust fund, their immediate liquidity is severely crippled. They are now trapped in a gilded cage of their own making, saddled with astronomical monthly overheads, private security forces that demand exorbitant cash retainers, and a parasitic army of Hollywood publicists and crisis managers who do not work for free. The vast real estate acquisitions they planned are dead in the water. The glossy PR campaigns designed to continuously rebrand their images are suddenly unfunded. The financial hemorrhage has begun, and there is no tourniquet in sight. But if you think the locking of that vault is the end of this story, you vastly underestimate the sheer, uncompromising brutality of the British Crown protecting its legacy. This is not the end of the war. This is merely the opening salvo of a conflict that is about to tear the remnants of this family apart on a global stage. Because there is a massive, looming question that is currently keeping the California camp awake at night, staring at the ceiling in cold sweats. If the king possesses absolute, uncontested control over the dispersal of this discretionary trust, and the funds are walled off in an impenetrable royal escrow, where exactly is the monarch going to redirect that mountain of generational wealth? Deep within the shadowy corridors of Buckingham Palace, senior insiders and constitutional aides are nervously whispering about a coming storm. The rumour mill among the highest-ranking aristocrats in London is churning with a terrifying new revelation regarding the darkest depths of the red leather dossier. There is, allegedly, a secondary, deeply buried clause written into that document by the late Queen Elizabeth. A clause so severe that even the most hardened palace enforcers are shocked by its absolute ruthlessness. It is known in archaic legal circles as the hostile beneficiary provision. This ancient legal mechanism dictates that if the primary beneficiary of a royal trust is definitively deemed to be acting in a manner openly hostile to the survival, dignity, and overarching stability of the crown, the sovereign is granted the unilateral, unquestionable right to completely sever that beneficiary's access. But it goes one devastating step further. The sovereign does not just freeze the money. The sovereign has the legal right to entirely reassign that generational wealth to the next loyal heir in the line of succession. That is right. King Charles might not just be holding his son's inheritance hostage. He might be actively preparing the legal groundwork to permanently strip Prince Harry of his portion of the Diana inheritance and transfer every single penny directly to Prince William's children. Imagine the psychological devastation of that single maneuver. The very wealth Prince Harry has weaponized for years, the money he has constantly invoked as his sacred, untouchable birthright from his tragic mother, could be legally ripped from his grasp and handed to the future king, Prince George. It would be the ultimate, humiliating defeat. A total erasure of Harry's financial legacy within the royal family, masterminded by his own father and legally bulletproofed by his late grandmother. The Sussex camp is fully aware that this existential threat is dangling over their heads like a guillotine. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, and the Duke and Duchess are rapidly running out of oxygen. Will the Sussexes take the ultimate suicidal leap and launch $1 billion international lawsuit directly against the British Crown? Will they attempt to drag the reigning monarch of the United Kingdom into a heavily televised, mudslinging American courtroom, sparking a constitutional and jurisdictional nightmare the likes of which international law has never seen? Or will King Charles preemptively pull the trigger, signing the final decree that forever banishes his younger son to the financial wilderness, while placing the $40 million squarely into the accounts of the Wales children? We are standing on the precipice of a high-finance bloodbath. The war for the royal billions has just begun. The lines have been irreversibly drawn in the sand, and the collateral damage from this impending legal apocalypse will be absolutely unimaginable. The American litigation machine is currently revving its engines, preparing to throw everything they have at the impenetrable fortress of British sovereign immunity, while the ancient institution of the monarchy stands firm, ready to crush this rebellion under the weight of 1,000 years of unyielding law. This is a rapidly developing, hyper-volatile situation, and we have our investigators monitoring the international court filings by the hour. We will be tracking every single wire transfer, every leaked document, and every desperate maneuver orchestrated by the Montecito PR machine. Now, I want to hear from you down below. Do you think King Charles was absolutely justified in ruthlessly freezing the $40 million to protect the crown's dignity? Or do you believe weaponizing a mother's inheritance is a step too far, even for the palace? Drop your raw, unfiltered opinion in the comment section right now, because this debate is tearing the internet apart. If you want to stay ahead of the mainstream media lies and be the very first to know the moment the next sealed legal document drops, you need to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and make absolutely sure you have that notification bell turned on to all alerts. We are exposing the truth they are desperate to hide. Thanks for watching, keep your eyes open, and always remember, the palace always wins.